So this is Christmas. For some, a season of haste and hurry.
For others, it can be a season for reflection, rest, and renewal.
'Tis the season. That's our topic on this episode of the Educators Among Us podcast.
Welcome to the Educators Among Us podcast, where we share motivational messages and inspiring stories for and about educators. Your host, Scott Barron, is author of the critically acclaimed book, Love 'Em and Lead 'Em, and provides powerful insights and wisdom for those who heed the call to teach, coach, lead, and serve at all levels of education.
This is Scott and Tammy Barron, and we're so pleased that we can bring you the Educators Among Us podcast. This is a special week because it's a time where a lot of celebrations are going on. Schools are out in the United States, at least, and it's a time to really take a break. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. It's 'tis the season, and there's different types of seasons we go through. And so we wanted to share with you just some insights that might be an encouragement and give you perspective for this time of year.
And one of the main things that educators like to do at this time of the year is to reflect. And when you reflect, it's really important that you don't ignore what happened in the past or how the year has gone so far, but you reflect on it honestly, with authenticity, and you look at it and you look at the growth opportunities that happened. You look at the obstacles, maybe some of the challenges, some of the ways in which you wish you could have done better. But then there's a time to put that behind you.
Right.
To just leave that and to be grateful. Start looking with gratitude at the opportunities for growth that happened in those obstacles, the wisdom that you gained and the knowledge that you gained from maybe some of the biggest challenges that you faced so far this year. And it's really important to look at that and look at how God brought you through it. And when you're grateful and when you have that attitude of gratitude, you're able to think about God and think about what he has done, his strength, and that it was his strength that got you to where you are today.
And we named this episode "'Tis the Season" because in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, the author there talks about there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. And reflection is an activity. It's a chance for us to be able to pause and think about. And sometimes we reflect on events, and there's a lot of events that we've all been through this year. I was actually speaking to a friend who was a head of a school, and you know, she's been through a really tough year. Her husband passed away, and she's dealt with a lot of other challenges, and we had a chance to pray with her and guide her through that journey of life. And so this is a hard season for her as she's going through that. A lot different people have different experience. We've been able to rejoice with a lot of school leaders and educators through some exciting events of this year, but it's not just events. It's also what brought you energy, what drained the energy, right? Part of that reflection is to learn.
It is, absolutely. And reflecting on what brought you joy is so impactful because, you know, when you get in a stuck place, which often happens at this time of year, you've gone at such a frenzied pace that you can't even remember, okay, I don't think I even ate lunch. I didn't breathe. You're running from one thing to another. Think about the times that you felt the most joyful. Reflect on that. Think about what, as Scott was saying, what brought you the most joy? What fed your soul then? And not just the events and activities that did that, as Scott was saying, but the mindset. When we're called to think on these things, to think on things of joy and peace and being grateful, that all of those are such productive thought patterns for us and can lead us to that place of joy. What were you taking more time for yourself? I'm sure you were. That's a really important thing to stop and remember that, okay, there are some things that I am going to, in the future, I'm going to stop doing, and there's things that I'm going to do more of.
Mm-hmm. For sure. There's also the chance to reflect on what were the points of frustration, right? When did I deal with frustration? What was a part of that? And sometimes we don't go back and do a bit of a post-mortem where we reflect on those times of fear or of resistance. And sometimes we were bumping up against other people causing that resistance. Sometimes we were the ones in the way, right? And what were we thinking about, right? What could we do to make adjustments? Now, reflections are not just going backwards. Reflections are also going forwards. This is something that I lean on Tammy a lot for, because we're a team, and we get to work in our work with school growth as well as Educators Fellowship. The blessing is we bring different strengths to the table, and one of hers is that ability to anticipate and to see what's coming, and that's something I don't necessarily have sometimes.
And that's a strength, but it can also be my biggest weakness and challenge, because I see all of the bad things that are going to happen. But if we do that, then this.
Yes.
And if this happens, then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen.
This is a risk.
Try to stay in the moment and try to realize, okay, from the knowledge that I've gained from actions in the past and what God has blessed me with, this is how I'm going to go forward in the future, and trust and have faith in the fact that God's going to lead you into the future just like he led you through the past.
For sure. And another thing to think about is in your reflection is we call it name your narratives, right? Think about what are the stories that you're telling yourself that, they may or may not be true. They're things that we've kind of have repeated so often that now we've kind of convinced ourselves, but your brain is extraordinarily powerful. If you tell yourself you can't do something or that's a weakness or that's you can convince yourself of that. And
absolutely.
It's so often we see educators that have convinced themselves that they either have certain limitations or can't, and it's actually not true. And so we have to our ministry and love for them compels us to say, wait a second, let's think about that, because the evidence that I'm seeing doesn't support that. There's actually another narrative here that's more true, right? So naming those owning those narratives is really important. Reflection also, of course, is a chance to grow spiritually. Where are we? Where are we in our relationship with God? Where are we in our own journey? Well, who are we spending time with that's helping us grow? Who's maybe causing us to not grow or to grow in a direction we don't want to go? That's a part of this time as well. 'Tis the season.
It is the season.
It's the season for reflection. It's also a season for rest. Right now.
Absolutely. And this is one, this is actually probably the most difficult. I know that this is supposed to be a time of rest, but you're running. Okay. Are the meals planned? What parties are we going to? Are all the gifts bought? Is everything wrapped? And you forget the essence of the season and the essence of what you're celebrating. It's that togetherness. It's that family and unity being together. It's okay if things are spilled all over the floor and the trash wasn't taken out, but except I'm not taking that off your list though. Now he has a long list.
I've got a long list right now to get ready.
And I'm not taking any of the items off, so you don't get to rest yet. But rest is so important, especially because God ordains rest. He was an example of that for us. Rested on the seventh day, not because he was tired or needed to, like we are. Us weak human vessels, we have to rest. And he has given us days of rest and says it's okay. And not only okay, but be still and know. How can you be still and know if you're caught up in all of the busyness?
Yeah, 'tis the season, right? And this rest is resting our minds, but it along with the body, right? It's turning things off. It's unplugging. Normally that means, just like sometimes we've seen that in certain schools now, they're seeing significant impact of sticking the phones away to start the school day. They're seeing that kids are actually, and students and adults are actually talking more. They're playing games more. They're interacting more. Even at our holidays get-togethers, sticking the phone away and taking the chance to commune with each other
and be present.
Being present.
Rest and be present. Being present is a big part of resting.
Yeah.
It's your mind isn't somewhere that your body isn't, and that's oftentimes I'm preaching to myself here.
Yeah, I was about to say
that's oftentimes
this is a big weakness of
where
mine.
I am is in my head and not with my body and not with those that mean the most to me.
Yes. Or I'm scrolling. I'm going
right. Yes, that's true. We had a sister-in-law. What was it that she talked about family get-togethers and weddings, and talked about the important thing to remember. You have to remember during those times to mind your tongue. Scott once wrote something that said our words are the clothes that our thoughts wear. Yeah. And that, that's so important to remember right now, that it's a powerful message that, our tongue is, can be our worst nightmare and our worst enemy. And so we need to be really careful during these times and be thoughtful, and being present is a part of that. When you're present and understanding what it is you are saying, the impact that it's going to have, but also resting your body. This is a time to rest your body and to remember, okay, what is it that makes me feel the most joyful? And try to put that into every day that you are having this break time, and reflect on that. Know that, go about reconnecting with your meaning, your perspective, your purpose. Start thinking about that.
Yeah. And it's also finding that rhythm again, because sometimes in the pace of the school year, we get off rhythm. There's a lot of the tyranny and the urge that takes over, and we get sped up. Right. And if you look at people who are most successful, but they also have a joy in what they're doing, they know their rhythm. They're able to, some athletes talk about, they can slow the game down. And it's not that the game actually slows down. It's that they slow their pace down, their rhythm, their mind, their body, and they get into their pace. And that's a part of this season of rest, is to get back into your rhythm. You got to find it. And sometimes that requires, again, the sleep. It requires listening to your body, getting some checkups maybe, but make sure that you're finding that, so that when you start, this is kind of like a lot of schools, this is halftime. Right? This is that chance to kind of take that breather and regroup. And, halftime at the game, they'll go in the locker room and they'll make adjustments. They'll look at what's working and what's not working. And they're on the whiteboard and they're erasing things. And now we got to do this. I thought that was going to work. Well, that's not working. So let's go do this. And this is a time. This is the time to find those moments.
You can throw out the things that didn't work. You can think about, what was it where we felt unified? When did my team feel unified? Right. When did our culture feel like it was the most productive and whole, and we were extremely mission aligned? What point in the year was that thus far? And so look back on that and gain energy from that.
Build on those strengths,
then focus on renewing your mind. Renewal is such an important part of life. You know, all through scripture, it talks about renewing your mind, and it talks about, you know, every day you're given that opportunity to, well, every moment you're given that opportunity to, okay, stop. And sometimes I have to say to myself, and I have to call my name out and say, Tammy, stop.
Because I don't do that. I've learned not to do that.
And it's good he doesn't do that. That's a wise
That's
man.
wisdom.
That is wisdom. He has reflected and realized that's not, he doesn't want to go there. But in that process of renewal and understanding where you are and where you want to be. Right. How do you want to think? That's
that's huge,
important.
actually.
That's huge.
So often we'll ask, you know, school leaders or others, what do you want? Like if you think about, and it's an important thing, if whatever your role is, as you have a chance to reflect and to rest, part of the next step that you have a chance to do as well as renewal, right? And in renewal, now we get to think about, well, what do we want? So often as we have these conversations, if I ask that question, there's a bit of a pause, and sometimes it's a long pause because I don't know, right? What do you want from your people? What do you want from your team? What do you want from your class?
What are your goals?
Yeah.
What are your life goals? And, you know, sometimes this is an important time to reflect on your life goals, not just your business goals.
Bigger purpose.
And the bigger purpose, right. Your bigger purpose. What do you want for your family? What do you want for your life? What do you want your legacy to be? You know, continually reflecting on that. What is the bigger end game? We know the end game, and we're thankful for that, you know, because of Christ, we know that end game, and we know what happens in the end, and that we are victorious. And because of that, how are we going to reach that path triumphantly? How are we going to run the race set before us? And what are the milestones that will indicate to us that we have chartered our course and our path correctly?
Yeah. And so obviously, you know, we're Christians and we celebrate now in this season, people celebrate lots of different things. For us, it is the birth of Christ, and because of the historical evidence for that, as well as the confirmation of that in our own journeys. And so this is a chance to really move past the past. The joy of some of this season is hope. Right. It's a hope of not being bound by past decisions, past failures.
Put them behind you.
Right.
Don't even think about it. Let it go.
Right.
If you've learned from it, let it go.
And that's part of being reformed. That's what renewal is. So we've talked about this idea of rest, but renewal is now we get ready. Right now we're being reformed physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. Why? Well, because we need that help. It deepens it gives us a deeper well from which to pull from. It gives us that wisdom that we gain over time, right? So this idea of renewal is, you know, it is renewing that spirit that Tammy was talking about. It's remembering, it's remembering who we are. And that's the purpose of this podcast, is designed for those who serve in all levels of education. Is, hey, don't forget, your words, your model, your testimony, it matters. You change lives. Often you don't know who you're touching, because the impact that we have it's now, but it's the children of the children we're working with now. It's generational. It's eternal. Right. So
it's a legacy that you're leaving behind to all those whose lives you touch.
That's right. It's a noble calling, right? And that's what we mean by the renewal here. Is it's renewing the spirit, and there's an excitement that can come from that. Hopefully you find joy in the nobility of that calling, of the impact that you have. And that brings you maybe that little glimmer that you need sometimes, because we bump up against sometimes a lot of conflict and other stuff going on. And of course, we know coming up in January and February, March, you know, a lot of things are happening. The pace of life doesn't get any less.
Get ready for it. Right? Get ready for it now.
That's right.
Now. Develop habits. Renewal is all about developing
Sure.
habits that renew your spirit, whether that be, reading through faith, through prayer, renewing your mind, thinking on positive things, thinking on gratitude, shifting from negative thoughts, renewing your body.
It's your attention.
You can, at any point in time, you're not stuck. You're not in a stuck place that you can't get out of.
Yep.
You're not trapped. You can always find a way to renew your spirit, your mind, and your body, and to work on that.
And building those strengths, right? It's those habits. It's developing those muscles. A lot of things we just have to learn the hard way. That's sometimes there's a lot of road signs going, warning, but some of us just gonna have to go through it and hit all the danger spots to learn. And hopefully we can have a little more wisdom than that. We can heed the signs, but sometimes we do have to fight through. There's just emotional muscles, spiritual muscles, physical muscles that we develop through that. And part of this renewal as well is kind of checking our emotions. It's one of the things that we know is important as we move forward into 2026 is let's try to err on the side of grace versus judgment. There's a lot of scriptural guidance around this, but even from psychology, we know that those who have a high capacity for forgiveness and grace being letting things go, even when we have a right to demand justice, when we have a right to create consequences, we choose not to for no other reason than love.
And, that's one of the things that I powerfully learned in the last couple of years was that God hasn't called me to judge. He does all that. I'm not called to do that. That's not my job. I am called to love in all circumstances. And loving in all circumstances doesn't mean that you agree with everything, but it does mean that you have a loving spirit, a kindness, and you are manifesting that with those who wrongfully commit wrongs against you, who have wronged you. Don't look for justice and judgment upon them. Put that away, because that only damages you. And look to love in all circumstances, all people. And it's amazing how that can transform and renew your mind and your thoughts and help you to get through some of the most challenging days.
Another part of that, of course, is then renewing those relationships. There may be some things that we allowed to get sour, maybe even siloed, divisive in this past year or past semester. Hey, go fix it. Go do what you have to do to restore those relationships. We need each other. We need to trust each other. We know that trust is the oxygen of the school ecosystem. And if we are hanging on to stuff, if we're holding grudges or we're seeing people through a lens of conflict and disagreement, whether it's students, sometimes we have to sit down with folks and say, hey, you actually have to be nice to kids. You gotta, that's part of the job, as well as kind to your colleagues.
One of the things that I did when I was a classroom teacher is when January came, the first day those kids were back at school, I would look at them and say, okay, everybody in here has an A. Today, we all have an A. We are, the demerits you may have gotten, the discipline notices, that's behind you.
Hit the reset.
You are a new person this year. You are in this classroom. You have the opportunity to come in and have a clean slate. Let's start it right. Let's start it fresh. Let's start it renewed in our mind, and let's go forward in a positive, productive way, creating strong relationships and connections with those people that we interact with on a daily basis.
It's giving them a freedom from the pain or whatever else that was caused before. It's giving them also a pathway that we can now use our strengths, and we can trust each other. We can have relationship together. And it's a vital part of every school community. It's really sad sometimes when we walk into schools where they do have a lot of deep seated, we call it a roots of bitterness, right? Where they just can't seem to get past the past. And that's a choice. It's just like Tammy said, if we can give them an A every day, especially as we start the new semester here coming up in January. But having that approach that says we're not going to see them through that lens of yesterday. Instead, we're going to see
allow
them through
to
the
grow.
Promise. Yeah, allow them to grow because you need that too. We all
need that. We all need that grace. We all need that. That grace and mercy and. Please forgive me for what I did in the past. It's a heavy burden to carry when you feel as though someone is looking at you through the lens of the past.
I'll forgive you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that.
The other thing is renewing your imagination. And sometimes we get sort of in the tasks of all the things we have to do, and hopefully you're able to unplug from some of that now in this season of rest. But often what happens is now the new year starts and now it's just, we're lost in all this to do. And there's so many things that happen, especially in January and February. Hey, don't lose your imagination.
Right.
Don't lose that creativity that allows us to, as we talked about, sometimes we need to stop doing some things. Sometimes we need to start doing some things, and being able to be creative to imagine, but what if, right? Yeah. I know we've been doing it though. I understand that's a tradition, but really, I mean, what if we were to try things a different way? What if we were to try different instructional strategies? What if we were to utilize some of the data we're going to be getting on our students? Sometimes we're doing some mid-year testing. And what if we're using that now to adjust our instructional approaches? And I know we have a file cabinet full of lesson plans and they worked really well, but what if? Right? What if we were tailoring our instructional strategies to the students we have today, not the ones from yesterday?
And that requires having a curiosity. Requires having a curiosity,
for sure,
and wanting to be creative. And that, in order to have that, you have to lose fear. And fear is oftentimes because I'm a creature that's a bit fearful. I definitely don't like to think out of the box. I like everything just exactly the same. I want my breakfast the same. I want, if every moment was a boring, dull moment, I would be one of the happiest.
That, right?
I would be so okay
drive me
with
crazy.
That. Yeah. And it would drive him absolutely nuts. But, try to lose that fear, that fearfulness, that holds you back from being who you don't want to die with a lot of dreams and aspirations that you never fulfilled because you were afraid and you let fear get in the way.
And that's a big part. We actually shared that. If you haven't seen it, we shared that in a weekly encouragement message that goes out every Monday morning. This past week, we shared one on that very topic, right? Is, hey, better an oops than a what if. Right. Better to try and then figure out a better way, or even to fail, than to say, man, I wish I had done it. That would have been so good. Right. It's take a chance. Sometimes we have to count the cost, but don't get paralyzed by trying to consider the risks. Like sometimes you got to go, and that's an important part of our leadership. So hopefully you're able to take advantage of this. 'Tis the season, and there's a season and a time for everything. And this is a very specific time. It's a time to celebrate. It's a time to reflect, to renew, to rest, right? So hopefully you're able to take advantage of that. And just a coaching question to consider as you're going through each day and week of this season. Did I do my best to honor the season today? Did I do my best to honor the season today? This is Scott and Tammy, and we're so glad that you're a part of this community together. Love them and lead them, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Educators Among Us podcast and for your courageous commitment to this noble calling. We get you and the challenges of this work. To stay connected with this community, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and weekly encouragement at educatorsamongus.com.